but I am new to LaSalle and new to teaching this course actually. So I started at LaSalle in September. So over the past couple of months, I've been kind of finding my way through the capstone as well in terms of what the expectations are from the university's perspective and the School of Health Sciences perspective. And I think over the last couple of months, myself, along with Dean Haverty, have continued to kind of bring into focus what we hope the capstone course will mean to students in terms of a culminating experience in their respective graduate programs. So I am the athletic training program director, and so some of my Master of Science and Athletic Training students will eventually be in the capstone course as well. But currently, it's a new program; and they're not quite to that point. So I've been working mostly with students, kind of in the other areas, the other programs. But there are a couple of athletic trainers actually out there practicing who are in the Master of Rehabilitation Sciences. So hopefully you guys have a few questions, and that'll really be what guides us in terms of things that I can answer or talk about. But I guess briefly, what I'll say about the capstone is it is a bit different, perhaps, than what you might expect or be used to based on an undergraduate experience. So that was one of the things that quickly came into focus for myself this year. We had a handful of students that actually had come through LaSalle for their undergraduate education and had completed a capstone over essentially the entire senior year. Whereas the capstone here at the graduate level is a semester long. So if anyone was kind of in that boat or had participated in a senior research project over the course of an entire year, you know, the expectation is really not for you to do that same type of research project, because there just isn't enough time to do that, to get through the proposal process, get through an IRB process, move through data collection, analyze your data, write a paper. So there just isn't really enough time. So you know what the focus of the what the capstone has become is writing a cat paper, a critically appraised topic. And so over the last couple of semesters, there was a slow shift to that. Some students, you know, even up a year ago, we're doing some other kind of applied research projects, or maybe putting together a professional presentation, and kind of just slowly over time, it's really boiled down to students writing a cat paper. And this semester, I believe I have 9 students in there, and all of them are writing a critically appraised topic paper on an area of their choosing. So certainly some type of clinical focus that they have. And a majority of them, almost all, not quite all, but a majority of them actually had shaped their topic area in their previous research methods class in the quantitative qualitative 780, I believe is the number, course. And working with Carlos a bit, who was an instructor for that class, kind of continued to refine that a little bit. So students have kind of found to have a little bit of a leg up in terms of identifying important evidence, articles that they hope to bring in and utilize as evidence in answering their clinical question as they develop their CAT paper. So that's kind of been like the focus. And again, where I would say one of the major kind of areas of confusion was around what type of project our students would be expected to do. Because again, actually, when I first got started in September, I had about 2 or 3 phone calls and Zoom sessions with some students who right away were a bit confused, who came into it feeling a bit overwhelmed that they weren't just, you know, they understood that there was no way they were going to be able to do everything that they had done in previously as a LaSalle student in a year-long capstone, kind of under the guidance of a research mentor. But really, the target or the goal here is for you to take all the skills that you've been developing throughout your graduate program, and then also in your professional lives, bring that into this course to be able to apply, you know, elements of creating a clinical question, sourcing through evidence and literature, appraising the literature, boiling that down into a clinical bottom line as part of that critically appraised topic paper, and then being able to disseminate that work out in some form or fashion. And that's really the goal that we try to accomplish in basically 14 to 15 weeks. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of some insights, maybe sparks a question or two, maybe already answers a question or two. But I'd be happy to try to answer anything else that students have at this point.
Hi, Professor Belmore. Nancy Gomes, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I guess I'm wondering, after we did a literature review paper and the quantitative research and qualitative research course, how is this different?
So say that again. So
how is the capstone or critically appraised topic paper different than the literature review that we did with Carlos?
Yeah, so like the literature review, from what I understand, is you kind of going out, finding some articles. Did you create some evidence tables as part of that? You're basically going to do those things, apply that exercise to a clinical question on the front end. So if there's a topic area of interest that you have a particular either area of expertise or an area that you'd like to develop more expertise in, and you create that clinical question, then you'll actually apply some of what you learned there with Carlos. What you did with him is kind of on a smaller scale probably, and then you'll expand and grow that. So students actually submit their, like I said, about 7 of the 9 use that topic or used that review of literature as their base, as kind of like their foundation. And they actually submitted that early on in the process and then built off of it. So I asked them also to, again, kind of repeat the process or create some new evidence tables. And again, those evidence tables are going to be articles that are specific to answering your questions. So it's creating tables around 3 or 4 different articles. Overall, they've based on the first drafts they've submitted so far. Again, there's anywhere from 3 to 5 articles that they're using to answer the bottom line element of their clinical question. They're ending up with somewhere around 15 or so references to create the entire paper, because again, the front end, there still is a literature review element to it to basically create a background for the reader, present the problem that's associated with the clinical question, and then the meat of that is really answering that question with again, those articles that speak directly to what you're really trying to dig into. So again, the main point here for students initially kind of to wrap their head around it wasn't that they weren't going out and creating new evidence, right? They were going out and looking at the existing evidence to answer the clinical question, right? So it's not a research question, but rather a clinical question. Whereas in the past, they had maybe had an understanding that they thought that they were going to be asked to essentially produce new evidence in utilizing some research methodology. Again, when we did our proposals, we had 2 or 3 students that had written up actually really nice qualitative methodology proposals. But again, you're not going to be going out and doing interviews and survey research and having to actually do that element. But if that's an area of interest, then certainly creating a question that looks at different perceptions or how people are feeling about a certain element, and then absolutely using qualitative research to help answer that question, it was appropriate. Because again, there was one student in particular that again was kind of passionate about wanting to do qualitative research in the future. So again, you can kind of take that, and again, what the skills that you've learned with Carlos, you're essentially going to be applying it in more of a directed manner, and again, kind of growing it with the goal really at the end being able to essentially submit your critically appraised topic paper for publication.
So if there's actually no evidence to answer the question that I examined, which was actually the point of why I examined it, I have to change the question, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm getting it now.
Yeah, so you can kind of use that as a foundation or a launching off point. And again, throughout the process this semester, several students have asked to change their clinical question. And essentially, this is about kind of the process and the ability to apply these things. In actual practice, if you're answering your clinical question with there is no evidence, then obviously if you're practicing in an evidence-based manner, you're going to look at the patient's, perceptions and values and things. You're going to use your own clinical expertise and in terms of guiding your practice with what little evidence, or if there is any evidence, suggests. But for the purposes of the CAT paper, I've allowed students to continue to kind of fine tune their clinical questions, because again, it was more about working through that full process and coming up with a product at the end that helps demonstrate that the skills that they've been honing in over the last several semesters, allowing them to apply it versus kind of coming to a stalemate with your clinical questions. So absolutely, you can kind of fine tune and adjust it and make it so it works for the process here.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Other questions? I'll say this too. Also, it is a asynchronous, online class. Like probably like the vast majority, if not all of them, have been like that. So we, in the course, have developed a series of deliverables throughout the process. So there's 5 different discussion threads that happen, 5 different reflection posts that happen. That ask you at different periods to kind of just reflect on your own process, help you engage with the other peers in the cohort, in the class, in terms of what things have gone well for them, what types of barriers have they encountered, what types of strategies are they using to manage all of the articles that they're sifting through. There's a couple, like I said, other assignments along the way, like creating the evidence tables that then have become really helpful, I think, for the students, at least in their last reflection, noted how it was really helpful when they were writing their first draft to then compare and see things side by side. So again, it's not like all of a sudden, we basically say, all right, here you go, here's the goal, and in 15 weeks turn this in, but kind of created, again, different steps along the way so you can continue to make progress and continue to kind of work together or utilize each other to support yourself in the kind of the writing process. Other questions?
Okay, not to monopolize, but has anyone actually been published?
So I don't know. It's a great question. Because like I said, I just got started.
Okay.
I was asked to teach that class, and I had a lot of questions at the beginning. It was some of the materials that I inherited. Like I said, there were other options too. So for those, if anyone's an athletic trainer, I don't know if anyone out there is an athletic trainer, but there was an option for students to create an evidence-based practice presentation and present it at like the NATA conference or something along those lines. Again, from what I discovered in just kind of some communications, no students had actually chosen to do that in quite a while either. So, which is why some of the options have kind of been filtered down to what makes the most sense. And there are a couple resources that I think we have posted, in terms of like journal guidelines and things like that for some different professions, as to kind of that give you, the framework for formatting and for, section headers and things like that for the paper that you decide to go down in terms of what route makes the most sense based on topic or discipline and things like that.
Is this a fall main class, or is this going to be like a fall 1, fall 2? Like, is it a 2-part course, or is it like a complete like one course?
It is a full main course, and I know it's offered multiple times throughout the year. So if you're looking to take it, next fall or spring, it'll be a spring main or a fall main course.
I was also just going to add, not so much publishing, but we're always looking for students to submit their final papers for our archives at the university. So if you feel like it was a paper that you'd like for us to be able to share with future students, then please, pass that along to your faculty or to myself or your advisor directly at the end, and we'd love to put it in our archives. Does anyone else have any other questions for Professor Belmore? Nothing is too small.
I guess I'll kind of add, one or two more things just to kind of help you from a planning standpoint. We do ask students to try to identify a research or writing mentor. So it's not required, but along the way, potentially you've developed a relationship with a faculty member, or you have a relationship with a faculty member at another institution, or a professional colleague who has kind of already established themselves with regard to either a topic area or particular research interests. Really, the mentor there, it's somebody who will be somebody that's a content expert, or somebody that you can reach out to for some additional support throughout the process. Kind of my role, this semester has been more of a facilitator with the students, continuing to help them move, to completion of the different deliverables along the way, providing some resources to help guide them. But I'm not an expert in nutrition, for example. And so we have a couple people that are doing some nutrition-based papers. A few of the people who are athletic trainers that are doing something around like an ACL rehab or a functional movement screen, or some other areas that I have experience with. I can kind of, from a content standpoint, help and speak to that a little bit more. But kind of depending on what you're leaning towards or thinking about, it's definitely helpful to have somebody who's can serve in a bit of a mentorship role there. Again, I don't ask you to do anything real formal with that. You don't have to create any type of agreement. They don't have to sign off on anything. Again, it's really helping you just kind of create or start to create a bit of a network that might help you through this process as well, especially if it's someone with some of that content expertise that can really help you on the either crafting the clinical question, what types of articles to dive into, what types of resources would be helpful for you. So again, that was another area that I had a few questions early on about.
Okay, anybody else? I put into the chat box, you'll find that we do have a graduate programs page on the LSL. It's just a list of some more information about the CAT and the class itself. So feel free to go there. Also, let's see, I could add, Keith, do you mind if I put your email address in there if they want to reach out to you with any more questions?
That's totally cool.
I think it's just K Belmore, isn't it?
You got it, K Belmore.
Okay, that's an easy one.
Yep.
And anybody, feel free to reach out to me, Professor Belmore, your advisor, if you have any additional questions. Spring's open now for registration, so you can get in there now.
And if you're in class with Carlos right now too, so Carlos and I and Dean Haverty met, I think, 2 weeks ago to continue this dialogue and conversation. So again, feel free to talk to Carlos as well too about, we kind of talked a little bit about, how he's structuring his course to, again, prepare students to be successful in this. So again, you got both of us as resources there for sure as well.